We've had an awesome day testing the 250Fs at Ottobiano here in Italy. It's been a real productive day, and the reason it's been so interesting is because most of the 250Fs have all had a model change this year. KTM, Husqvarna, Suzuki, the Yamaha, also as well the Honda, that had a model change last year in 2018, and it's been revised for 2019, but more on that in a little bit. Manufacturers have really focused on the 250F range, and the reason that is because the 250F obviously appeals to a wide range of riders. Suzuki have brought a brand new 250F to the market in 2019. Yes, it's a lot better than the 2018, but it still falls short in the class, unfortunately. It will meet the needs of the clubman rider, and if you're a Suzuki fan, yes, you're going to love this bike. I like the look and design, it's something fresh, but the feel on track, you know, it's a little bit rigid, it's going to take a little bit of setting up, and also as well, the horsepower is down, unfortunately. The bike has seen massive changes this year. It's got a new frame, it's not identical to the 451, it's slightly different. The front forks, they've gone back to spring front forks, the camshaft, the air intake, the throttle body, it still hasn't got an electric start, and it still hasn't got a hydraulic clutch. In front of the Suzuki, or next up, would be the Kawasaki 250F. The bike hasn't changed a lot since 2018. It always does surprise me every time when I get on the Kawasaki, because the bike is good, you know, and it feels really good. It just lacks a little bit of top end power, and obviously it hasn't got an electric start, and it hasn't got a hydraulic clutch. The bike just feels a little bit dated. Also as well in design, you know, it needs a bit of a freshener, just to look a little bit different than it has done in previous years. But as I've mentioned, you know, it always surprises me because it kind of gets forgotten about quite a lot, the Kawasaki. The reason why I mention that it surprises me is because every time when I get on the bike, I actually have a lot of fun on the bike, and that's because the power range, you know, it's so usable and so friendly. I think it meets the need of most, and that's not to say that it's slow, because it's not slow. It's just slower to the leading three. But actually the feel on track is really good. But unfortunately, you know, if Kawasaki don't come out in 2020 with something a little bit more revised and modern, then it is going to get lost in this group, because its competitors are coming out with new model changes and new spec updates. Next up for me is the Honda. The 250F seen a massive change in 2018, and we all know that the chassis is really good on the Honda and the suspension, and it does meet the needs for most. You know, it's one of those bikes that you can just pull out, and the setup is so good across the board that it suits most riders. Unfortunately in 2018 the power was an issue, and it wasn't the fact that it didn't make enough of power, because it did have good peak power, but the problem was getting to that peak power. In 2019 the 250F now seems to have such a much better connection, and that's been done by changing the cam profiles, and also as well the smaller throttle body. The intake on the Honda has been revised and improved, and you can certainly feel that out on track. How the bike feels now on track over the 2018 is a big difference. It was a real big surprise to me, as the bike just picked up coming out of the turns and down the straight. So even if it did lose power up on the top end, which it doesn't, that wouldn't put me off from buying the bike, because the bike now really does punch out of the turns. For me personally, Honda have listened to the market. They realised that they didn't have the correct power from bottom to mid, and they've adjusted that and they've corrected it, and it is definitely an improvement. For me, next up would be the FC 250F. Husqvarna have come out with a new model change. We all know Husqvarna shares the same DNA as KTM, and they're both very similar. Both bikes see new frames, revived suspension, different swinging arm, different linkage, a little bit more power, but the Husky still falls short of the KTM. The KTM still offers that little bit more power, and you can feel that out on track. I don't know if this is down to the silencer or, you know, down to the airbox, but there's definitely a little bit of a difference. Yeah, husky in design, I didn't really like it at first, but it's one of those designs that grows on you, and it's certainly grown on me, and I quite like the bike, and I've seen some pretty cool personalised bikes which appeal to me because it's a little bit different. Next up for me is KTM. KTM is obviously the heavy hitter of the class. The power that the bike produces is insane, and you never seem to be running out of RPM. The connection's really good, and the drive from the turns is really good. I like the way that the power works with the gear ratio, and the bike feels so light on track. It is the lightest in its class. For pro racers, this is the bike to have, because of the horsepower that it produces and the way that you'll ride a bike and the things that you'll ask from it, then you'll certainly want a KTM. For me, the reason why the KTM just fell short of the Yamaha is because you have to dial the KTM a little. You know, you have to get your head around the suspension, you have to customise it for yourself. I know that you have to do that for most bikes. It just seems that the Yamaha is set at a much wider range. You know, from club level to pro, you're going to be pretty satisfied with the setup and the balance and the way that the bike feels. Yamaha brought a brand new bike to the model year 2019, and the 250F has got so many new features. The frame's slimmer, the radiators are lower, the power's different, it's got an electric start, it's got revised suspension, it's got a mapping switch. Yamaha have really thought about what people need. It's a massive advantage being able to set up your bike just by using the Yamaha Pro Tuning app, and the benefits of being able to adjust the fueling and the ECU are huge, which is one of the many reasons why we like the Yamaha, because it meets the need of a wide range of riders. The bike feels good on track, the suspension's good, it's really well balanced. The connection from throttle to rear wheel is really good, the bike picks up good. It falls short a little bit on horsepower on top, but in all honesty, I don't think you're ever going to get the bike there revving right on the rev limiter, because where the bike makes the most power is in that mid-range. And you can certainly work the gearbox to get the full potential out of this bike. So that's why we really like the Yamaha. It's one of those bikes that you can just pull out of the back of your van and go riding. And when I say that, that's from club level to pro racer.